Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, Senate President calls for immediate review of the security situation in the Northeast following the attack on United Nations humanitarian convoy in Borno State. Nigerian Army reiterates readiness to apply force if talks aimed at ending ongoing militancy in the Niger Delta fails. Another child chained for stealing rescued in Ogun State. Police seek information on fleeing woman linked to the act. And French Prime Minister lambasts his country justice system in connection with the killing of a priest in the church in Normandy.
And on business news tonight, OPEC's crude output set to hit new record high in July.
On sports news, former Super Eagles coach Stephen Keshi finally laid to rest in his hometown, Ila, Delta State.
I'm Gloria Umezuke, and from Abuja, federal agency seeks assistance of security operatives in tackling human trafficking in Nigeria.
We begin tonight with the Senate President's call for the immediate review of the security situation in the Northeast by the relevant authorities following the announcement by the United Nations that is suspending aid deliveries because of the attack on its humanitarian convoy in Borno State. In a statement, Senator Bukola Saraki condemns the attack, saying it's unacceptable and endangers the lives of aid workers trying to help the situation in the troubled Northeast. Senator Saraki also asked the Presidential Initiative for the Northeast, the National Emergency Management Agency and other relevant agencies to immediately address the shortfall arising from cessation of donations of food and medicines by the United Nations. He promised to ensure that the Senate speeds up the passage of the Northeast Development Commission bill, which aims to create a legislative framework and multi-state platform for the coordination of relief and donations to the zone. There'll be more on that story in the course of this bulletin. In the meantime, the Nigerian Army has reiterated its readiness to opt for the stick approach should the ongoing negotiations efforts in the Niger Delta region and the militants fail to yield positive results. The General Officer Commanding 2 Division, Major General Kasumu Abdul Karim, said this while speaking with journalists during his visit to the headquarters 4 Brigade of the Nigerian Army in Benin City, the Edo State capital.
The General Officer Commanding 2 Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Kasimu Abdul Karim, arrives at the headquarters of 4 Brigade in Benin City. He heads straight to the quarter guard mounted in his honor. Done with that, the GOC enters into a brief meeting with management staff of the brigade and later emerges to take part in this fitness session. After the fitness session, the GOC then speaks to journalists on issues bordering on national security.
We have 2 ways, the non-kinetic and kinetic means. So if the non-kinetic phase, it is our collective responsibility to defend the territorial integrity of our nation. We cannot sit down as military professionals while some people sabotage the national economy. I think that is uncalled for.
The GOC also affirms the readiness of the Army to complement the efforts of other security agencies in ensuring non-violent governorship election in Edo State come September 10, 2016.
The only responsibility we have in election is to provide a conducive atmosphere for people to go about their normal businesses, and they should be able to cast their vote. The Nigerian Army is not the first respondent. So we go according to the guidelines of our higher quarters. And what are the guidelines? It's clear, to provide a conducive atmosphere. We don't have any role more than that.
This visit by the GOC is part of his familiarization and assessment tour of military formations under his control, with the aim of strengthening the Nigerian army.
As victims of terror attacks in communities in the northeast returns to their homes, there has been growing calls on public and private institutions to provide social amenities. Our next report examines the prevailing challenges being experienced by the internally displaced persons and efforts being made to resolve the situation.
The shellings and bombings by the Islamist terrorist group Boko Haram have sacked them all from their villages and communities. But the government must protect its people, and so the internally displaced camps are opened. As if the security threat is not enough, the people are now faced with hunger. According to the United Nations Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, the worst hit are the children who daily die from acute malnutrition. On a frightening note, starving to death, Geneva-based Médecins Sans Frontières says that 6 malnourished children die daily in the IDP camp in Bama, Borno State. MSF says some 24,000 IDPs live in the Bama camp, with 15,000 of them children. The charity organization says more than 1,200 graves were discovered near the camp in 2015 and almost 500 for children. Various local and international aid agencies, including individuals, have moved in to assist the state government in the worst hit Yobe, Adamawa and Borno in quelling hunger, but that aid is now threatened. In trying to bring succor to the IDPs, aid agencies are now targets for militant attacks. UNICEF, in a statement on 28th of July 2016, raised an alarm over the attack on its convoy by unknown assailants. The personnel was said to have returned to Maiduguri from delivering aid to the IDPs in Bama, Borno State. A UNICEF employee and an international organization for migration contractor were reportedly seriously injured. According to the agency, the United Nations has temporarily suspended humanitarian assistance missions pending the review of the security situation. Observers fear the attacks on aid agencies may be a drawback for help to the IDPs as the hunger crisis continues to rise, while the government's plans to rebuild the northeast may be hampered. Loretta Chiogo, Channels Television News.
And joining us from our Abuja studio to look at this issue further is UNICEF's Chief of Communications, June Porter. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the News at 10. You just listened to that report we just heard now. What concerns does these attacks raise in your view and in efforts to get aid to the much needed people who need them the most in the Northeast?
Well, it's obviously a very, very serious event, and as you reported, we stopped, the United Nations stopped humanitarian missions outside Maiduguri in Borno State. Now, it's very important to underline that we're not pulling out of Borno State, we're continuing our work in Maiduguri, and that we have partners who are still working in, for example, Bama. The convoy was on its way back from Bama to Maiduguri. So temporarily, United Nations staff are not allowed to travel out into areas of Borno State outside Maiduguri. But first of all, this is a temporary cessation of travel. And second of all, as I said, it's very important to underline that we're still there, we're still delivering assistance, and our partners are still on the ground.
Will you be ready to return immediately if you are guaranteed of protection of aids coming in and even when you're returning back to Maiduguri, the base?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is UNICEF ready to return immediately to your operations if given the guarantee of protection from the Nigerian forces if you have to go outside of your border area, which is Maiduguri center? Would you be willing to accept those terms and return?
Well, as soon as our security personnel working with the authorities in Nigeria are assured that the security situation has returned, that it's safe to travel, we will resume our travels immediately. We're very, very keen to get back out into the field. As I say, our partners are still in the field, but we're very keen to get into the field again to continue the work that we're doing. Most of the work that UNICEF is undertaking continues despite this travel ban, but as you said in your report, there are hundreds of thousands of children in particular who are in need of urgent help. We estimate that this year in Borno State alone, almost 250,000 children will suffer from severe acute malnutrition. That means that a child is 9 times more likely to die of an ordinary illness, for example, diarrhea or pneumonia or malaria, all of which are very common in the area. People are in desperate condition, and we need to get back out. UNICEF needs to get back out as much as we can. We need to scale up, and we're calling on everybody to scale up. The government, other international humanitarian actors, Nigerian humanitarian actors, and also donors. It's a huge problem. We have still limited resources, and of course the security question as well. So there are a lot of problems, but we are determined that we will scale up our response and calling on other actors to do likewise.
UNICEF Chief of Communications, June Porter, I want to thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us here on the news at 10. Barely a week after the rescue of 9-year-old Korode Taiwo, who was changed for stealing by his pastor father, security operatives in Ogun State have rescued another child in similar circumstances. 10-year-old Promise Ude was alleged to have been changed by her aunt for stealing 4,000 naira in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. According to the acting police public relations officer, Mr. Abimbola Oyeyemi, a middle-aged man has been arrested in connection with the crime, while another woman believed to have links with the incident is said to be on the run.
Our men at Adigbe division, they have an information that one 10-year-old girl by name Promise Ude is being chained to burglary-proof iron in an uncompleted building at Adigbe area. And this led to our men to the place, and they rescued the girl. On interrogation, the girl made us to know that it was her auntie, whom she is living with, that tied her down on the allegation that she stole 4,000 naira. So the auntie now is on the run, but the husband, who is an accomplice, has been arrested by our men and is helping us in our investigation right now.
In part 2, after the break, NAPTIP calls on security operatives and all Nigerians to step up efforts towards ending human trafficking. Stay with us.